Okay, people couldn't hear at the end, so I restarted. Just waiting for it to populate and see if people are hearing me now. Let's see. Can you hear me? Let me know if you could hear me. Anyone want to let me know if you could hear me in the comments? Yes, awesome. Okay. So I don't know exactly where I wasn't able to be heard in the last one, but I think I probably left off around with Viktor Frankl. So with Viktor Frankl, okay, awesome, you hear me, great. So he says between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So what exactly does this mean, right? There's a stimulus. There's something that triggers you, right? Maybe it's someone saying they're engaged. Maybe they bought a new house. Maybe they got a new job. Maybe they're expecting a baby, like kind of thinking of all the things that like someone might want, right? Again, the topic is how to be happy for others when they have what you want. And there is a space before the response, okay? What is that space? So the space that's the time when growth happens. And just so you understand, before I get into the space a little bit more deeply, right? This was tested in Nazi Germany, like Viktor Frankl's idea. So as much as it sounds lofty, ooh la la, whatever, like it's really based, like, it survived the concentration camps. So, that's why I think it really, that's why it speaks to me so much, because, what we're going through, we're going through pretty hard times right now. But I think his lessons really resonate. And so anyway, what he talks about, right, is space. So what do you do in that space? And to be honest, the first thing you do in that space is you have to go through the stages of grief. Grief isn't reserved for, only for death. It's reserved for anything that is feels like a loss. And to be honest, when someone gets something that you want, it almost feels like a loss to you, right? So what are some of the stages of grief, right? So denial, like, oh my God, are they really pregnant? Like, really? Or did they really get the good job? Like, really the one I wanted, or whatever it is. And then you kind of start getting angry, and there's the bargaining, and then you sort of sink into depression, like, everybody's married, everybody's this, everybody's that. And I know it sounds like I'm coming from like a high horse or whatever. You might not know me, or you might know me, but everybody is going through something, don't worry. Trust me, like I'm speaking to you, but I'm really also internalizing the message for myself as well. And eventually you get to a place of acceptance. Now, most people will tell you, right, these stages of grief do not go in order. They're not linear. And also this space can be long. And just because someone calls you to tells you something doesn't mean that your response has to be in that tiny space, right? You can have a little short response and still give yourself that space. And once you get into the acceptance stage, that's when the growth happens. And that's the opportunity to decide what type of person you really want to be. Because honestly, it comes down to responsibility, right? What is the word responsibility? It's the ability to respond. Responsibility. Your responsibility is your ability to respond. That's what it comes down to, right? And we can give ourselves time to grieve and to be miserable. And at the end of the day, we have to choose. What do we want to be? Who do we want to be? We can feel two feelings at once. We could feel annoyed, but we could also try and develop empathy. And empathy for others about happy occasions is really hard. Like, it's one thing when someone goes through something difficult, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, it's hard. So you can feel for them. But when someone goes through something good, happy, it's so much harder, right? Like, even in the Torah, this was known when Moshe was, told by God he was going to be the spokesperson of the Jewish people. God literally had to say, by the way, don't worry, your brother Aaron will be really happy for you. Why did it have to say that? Because Moshe automatically assumed that it's going to be hard for Aaron, that he just got this huge promotion basically of being the spokesperson of God and not his brother. And so, Aaron's the older brother. And so he had to say to Moshe, no, Aaron is actually going to be happy, right? It's so human nature for us to not be happy for other people when we hear about their greatness and their simcha, because it's triggering to us and it kind of highlights our struggles, right? I remember there was a stage in my life where there were certain things I really wanted to happen, and someone basically called me up and told me all these things that literally was exactly what I was stopping for. And it was very triggering because it reminds you of what you're struggling with. And then I remembered something funny, which is that past Rosh Hashanah, I had said to God, right, help me work on being happy for other people. And guess what? he helped me by giving me opportunities, right? We kind of say like, hey, I want to be a patient person, but we can't be patient, right? Unless we're forced to wait, right? So we want to get to the other end, but we don't always want to go through the experience. Like I want to say I'm a patient person. I don't want to wait in a waiting room for an hour and a half, right? Like I want to say that I'm this person that's happy for others, but like I don't really want to go through the experience of them having what I want. But we kind of have to, right? We have to actualize our potential. Like in order to actualize the potential, we have to go through a challenging situation, right? And the way we build ourselves up in that space, that's the growth process, right? And like this is not supposed to sound fluffy. Like when we look externally for our freedom, we're not going to be able to be happy, right? We need to accept that challenges are hard, but that's what actualizes our potential. And this is exactly what it is. It's a challenge, right? And it's really interesting. Even it says that the Messiah, that Mashiach, who is it going to be? It's not going to be this guy that's sitting learning all day. It's going to be someone who went through a lot of challenges, because only someone that's gone through a lot of challenges is going to understand, right? Is going to actually have actualized himself, right? And again, like you said, jealousy is a challenge because it really brings to the fore what we're struggling with. You don't tend to get jealous of people that when their success is unattainable. So, if someone's like speaking at TEDx, and like I'm watching a TED talk, I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so jealous of this person giving a TED talk, right? Like maybe it's a pipe dream, but it's like more like a pipe dream, not like a realistic dream. And so it's not something I would get jealous of, but there are other things that are more like, oh my gosh, wait, like why can't I be doing that? And then you start to get jealous. I'll give you an example from when I was in high school. I remember I was trying to get a scholarship to a certain college. I'll send you the source about Mashiach going through challenges. I believe it's a Sichos Musar, so I'm going to get that for you. Just DM me after, if you don't mind, at Rikki Consulting, and I'm happy to, I have to just get the source, but I'll share it with you. So anyway, my example, right, from high school, I was trying to get a 1400 on the SATs. I was so close, but I was not there. And I really needed it. Like I couldn't even apply for the scholarship without it. And in the end, I was like, I couldn't get it. I took the SATs or ECTs, whatever it was, like 1,000 million times. And all my friends around me were getting 1,400, like piece of cake. Like they didn't even have to like probably have a tutor. And I was like trying so hard and I couldn't get it. And I was so frustrated. And in the end, I went to Queen's College, which is not a bad place to be. But I wasn't like so excited because, it was not my first choice. And in the end, that is where I met my husband. So, as hard as it was in high school, right? And I was jealous. Trust me, I had a really hard time because like it was so within my reach and like it was happening all around me and it really brought to the fore that struggle. But at the end of the day, like, it worked out. And we don't always know. I'm lucky I was able to see the result of it working out. Like that was cool for me. But we also have to realize that sometimes we don't see the result, that it works well for us, and we sort of still have to trust that it's best, right? And so just to kind of like sum everything up, right? Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our literal responsibility, our ability to respond. And that is a responsibility we can't take for granted. It's our ability to tap into our freedom and to choose our attitudes, right? Viktor Frankl basically talks about this, that there's 3 ways to find meaning in life. The first is through creative values, through what you bring to the world. The second is through what you take from the world, your experiences. But then when there's nothing you can do else, then it's your attitudes. And so again, this is like no matter what stage of life you're in, there's always something you can be jealous of. There's always more, right? And we have to sort of figure out, like, sometimes we can use our creative energy, right? Like if it has to do with a job, maybe we're jealous and like we're not working hard enough and we could. And, part of that is like, an insecurity in ourselves or wherever it's coming from. But a lot of times it's not, right? Like you can't necessarily choose to get married. Like you want to get married. It's as people who are struggling obviously know, it's not within your control fully, right? So you have to it's all about your attitude because there's nothing you can necessarily change. And so like, again, in that space is when you have to figure out the responsibility. And just to reiterate also, right? If someone calls you, right, and with like a news and it's stressful for you, yes, we're saying you have this responsibility, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have that crazy responsibility on a difficult phone call. I mean, first of all, it would be nice if people were sensitive and didn't call people to tell them certain news, but we can't really tell other people what to do. We kind of have to work on ourselves. And the question really that we have to ask ourselves is, how are we going to show up in this one life that we have, right? Our challenges are not with our control. We just have this responsibility to choose freedom. And it's not easy, but it's worth it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Does anyone have any questions? I was looking through. I saw first that people couldn't hear, and now I see, I mentioned before where it says Mashiach will go through challenges, which I want to send that source. Does anyone have any other questions, comments, thoughts? Oh, thanks for the heart. Okay, amazing. I will save this live, and definitely feel free if you want any follow-up, DM me at Rikki Ash Consulting. I'll tag that or something that I don't think it's called tagging, collaborate, whatever it's called. Anyway, thanks guys.